open session to order. And the items on the agenda, 2 through 9.6. So the first item on the agenda, item 2, is the approval of the minutes. So can I get a motion to approve our minutes from September 15th? Anne Marie?
Yes.
And second, Jennifer. Anyone opposed? Okay, none noted, so moved. If we can go ahead and adopt the agenda, if anybody has any additions, or we can just, can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as is?
So moved.
Okay, John? Seconded by Jennifer. Anyone opposed? Okay. No one opposed. Okay, so item number 4 is disclosure of conflict of interest. Does anybody have a conflict of interest with any items on our agenda tonight? Okay, none noted. Okay, so we don't have any presentations or committee reports, but before we get into kind of the rest of the agenda items, we did this in closed session and I realized that now we're in open session, so I wanted to publicly welcome Chief Bates to the St. John Police Force. We're very happy to have you here. Day 2 on the job, and I know a lot of people in the community and on the force have been very much looking forward to your arrival, and we're very happy that we're able to have a commission meeting so soon after your arrival, and we can all come together and start moving forward early in your time here with us.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm very happy to be here. I'm thrilled for the opportunity, and I look forward to being value added both to the force and to the community, and I look forward very much to collectively and collaboratively with the St. John Police Force and the community moving both forward together. I think police forces in general are part of the cog in the wheel of building strong communities. That's what we're all about, and I look forward to being part of that.
Excellent.
St. John. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Bates. Okay, so item 9.1 is page 36 of your large packet, and that's our internal monthly report. So given that it's your second day on the job, Chief Bates, we're going to have Inspector Parks speak to this for tonight.
I appreciate that.
Yes, Madam Chair, in the month of September, there were 0 complaints, 2 complimentary correspondence, and 0 grievances.
Very good. Can I get a motion to receive and file the internal monthly report?
Receive and file.
Okay, Anne Marie, and seconded by Jennifer. Anyone opposed? Okay, none noted. We'll move that. Item 9.2 on page 37. So this is the ratification of our electronic motion and subsequent vote on the security services, the detention holding facility. So as you all are aware, on September 25th, we held an electronic vote with respect to the security services, and we passed the resolution, and I'll just read it out. So resolved that the St. John Board of Police Commissioners accept the proposal that the Corps of Commissioners will provide 24/7 detention security services for a period of 2 years commencing October 5th, 2015. So we did discuss this previous to now, so this is really not meant to be a discussion item. It is meant to be just ratifying this vote. So if I can get a motion to ratify the vote that has already happened. Okay,
So moved.
Jennifer, and seconded by John. Anyone opposed?
On the question, Madam Chair, just a question about the cost for the Corps of Commissioners to provide the service.
Mm-hmm.
Were there more economical for you to perhaps the inspector? Were there more economical options for the police force to pick from?
Yeah, so as we discussed in our last meeting, and we held this discussion through an electronic vote. So as I said, Commissioner Norton, this isn't meant to go ahead and have a discussion on the motion. This is to ratify the vote that's already happened. So is your vote to go ahead and accept the ratification of this motion that has already passed?
No, my question is, Madam Chair, was there a more economical option for the commission to consider?
Yeah, so the request for proposal was already gone through in our previous discussions, and this was determined to be the most risk averse and economical, given the current situation that we're in, that we've already kind of gone through electronically. So we're gonna go ahead and work on this ratification of the vote, and we're not going to entertain any more discussion on the previous motion that's already passed. Okay, so can I get, we had the motion and second for the ratification. Anyone opposed to ratifying this vote?
Madam Chair,
Okay.
My question hasn't been answered, and so I have to vote nay on the ratification.
Okay, so noted. Okay. All right, and we'll move on to item 9.3. So on page 38, so we received basically an invitation from the New Brunswick Police Commission, and that's all in your package. So as we've heard, I think for the past year or so, there's some work being done on updating the Police Act, the New Brunswick Police Act. A lot of changes have been kind of worked on and proposed, and that's in the package here. So what they are proposing at this point is they want to bring a group together, and they've invited one member from our board to attend a 3-day consultative workshop. And so that would be really to get into the details of these 30 issues that they'd like to see revised. So I think given the fact that we have all of the documentation here, I don't want to get into a big discussion prior to the session. What I'd like to recommend is that we determine who we would send from our board, and once we determine who that is, then we would all take time and really review the recommendations and then funnel our questions through that representative. So the session is October, I think 20th to 22nd, 20th, 21st, 22nd. I know I'm not able to take 3 days off work to do that. And so I'd like to open it up if there's any volunteers who would like to attend that session on our behalf, who is available. And it's pretty intense, I would imagine, 3 full days. So it's a lot to ask, and then we would funnel our questions and our comments on the amendments through that person. So do we have any volunteers who would be able to spend the 3 days in Fredericton doing that?
Yeah, I'll go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not surprised.
Done that, I'll go.
Exactly. So Anne Marie, you're probably the best person for the job. You've gone through this many times before in previous years, so we think that'll be excellent, I think. So can I ask for a motion that we send Anne Marie on our behalf to take part in these sessions?
So
Okay, John, and second. Jennifer, anyone opposed? Okay, so then that's moved, and I would just ask that everybody review these. I think it's important that we all take a really good look at that. If you have comments, I would ask that you send those comments electronically through to Anne Marie, but CC everybody on the board, and then we can all kind of be aware. And then Anne Marie, if you can come back in the November meeting
Yes.
with an update,
Right.
that would be
I
great.
will.
Thank you very much. That's a lot of time, and we appreciate that.
Oh, just before,
Yeah.
in reading this correspondence, I know it's 3 days that are being set aside, but it sounds like they're going to pare the numbers down, so
Okay.
from original 31 to 10, so it may be that your representative may not be
It
there for all
depends.
3 days.
Right.
Oh, okay. Yes, you're right now. I see that. Yeah, good. Thank you, Chief Bates.
But you're there for the first day.
At least.
And then they go
Yeah.
through.
and then
Yeah,
go through.
yes. You're an old pro at this, Anne Marie. Very good. Okay, so that's item 9.3. So items 9.4 and 9.5. So those are on pages 143 and 145 in your packages. The overtime and court expense and the overtime hours utilization. I'm thinking probably the best person to speak to that tonight would be Marvin. Are you prepared to do that? Page 143 in your packets.
The first report, which is a standing report that we bring in every month, is the overtime and core time expense. You notice for the month of August, after we claw back our extra duty revenue, we're just slightly over budget by $7,500 for the month, which is quite well considering we're in the summer and it's quite busy. And year to date, after we take away our extra duty, we're about $90,000 over budget. And what's important, as I said, the last report, or last board meeting, which was only a few weeks ago, is from this report we move to the utilization and then we give a better explanation of where that overtime is being spent, if you want to call it that. So unless there's any specific questions on the dollar amounts, the secondary report really talks to where our overtime is being allocated.
Right. Okay, so can I get a motion to receive and file the first report, and then we'll get into the utilization, which is really what we've been trying to move toward, as Marvin said, and try to get a handle on actuals and what's being used a month. So motion to receive and file. Jennifer, second.
I'll second it.
Anne Marie, and anyone opposed? Okay, none noted, so we'll go ahead and move that and move to item 9.5, which is the utilization report. Marvin?
Again, this is a new report that's only the second time we brought it forward to the board. What this report does on the overtime is it takes our annual budget and we change that dollar amount to what I would refer to as usable or available overtime hours. And in the month of August, you'll see that overall we had 529 hours available to us. And that 529 hours, that's based on a constable's rate. The majority of our officers are constables. So the 529 is what we have available to use through all the divisions. And obviously the biggest division is patrol. And you'll see that for the month, we used 923 hours, and obviously we're 300, almost 400 hours over budget. Year to date, you'll see that, again, we're 998 hours over budget. If you go to the second part of this document, you're going to see that a lot of our overtime, other than related to investigations, is driven by utilization and patrol. And just to put things in perspective, from August to July, is in the month of July we had 42 shifts on patrol that we backfilled. That means that we didn't have our minimum numbers, 10 during most of the week and 12 in the evenings, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. In August that's moved up to 48, which we anticipated because it's summertime. There's more people on vacation and there's more people off. Overall, the year-to-date shifts that we backfilled up to the end of August was 237. And that, on average, for the year is about 30 shifts a month. What that's really telling us, if you drill down and look aside from people either being sick on vacation, is our resources of patrol have gone down so much that we're actually paying a premium to backfill. Whereas if they were regular officers, we wouldn't be paying overtime, we'd be paying wages. So we are getting to a point, like I said last meeting, that by doing this is not a good way to run any business, by paying a premium to backfill shifts. With reference to our collective agreement, we do have a requirement that we have to keep minimum manning, 10 for the week, and then the evenings, Thursday, Friday, Saturday is 12. So we have no choice, we have to do that. And these shifts I call backfill, and that's what that means. We've gone below those numbers, we had to hire officers to come in. So putting that aside, our overtime really is in good shape, except that we don't have the resources on patrol now that we had 3 or 4 years ago. We're down to 20 people overall. So that's where we're seeing the change or the mix from our costs from wages to overtime. And you'll see as we get to the end of the year, the number of shifts should go down because more people are back to work after the summer season. But that's our reality as we go through. So I know at the last meeting we have to come up with a strategy on how we want to manage that going forward. One of the things I would say again is our overtime budget is not realistic to what it should be. And that's something we will look at when we prepare next year's budget as well.
Yeah, and I know just in kind of preliminary discussions, Chief Bates and I have talked about that. So now that we have this number of shifts,
Exactly.
What we talked about was really saying, okay, let's do a bottom-up estimate in terms of what's realistic for a force of our size. How many shifts does that is expected given the size of our force? And then we say how much, what's the budget line number? What does that mean in dollars? Because I know we talked about this last year at council, that our budgeted dollar figure has not changed in over 10 years, even though the collective agreement has changed significantly and the per hour cost for each shift has gone up dramatically. So we need to be able to, it's very difficult obviously to manage an overtime dollar amount when the number of shifts doesn't accurately reflect what we would expect and that is reasonable. And then we can proactively make this decision based on how maybe this is still more cost effective to bring in people on overtime, or maybe it's more cost effective to look at how we are delivering our services and what we can do. And I know, again, early on, it's only day 2 for Chief Bates, but what we've talked about is really having Chief Bates do an overall assessment and really look for opportunities and to come back to the board with a 100-day plan in terms of not just overtime, but it would include this and what are the opportunities that we need to look at overall to run this force more efficiently, more effectively, perhaps. Whatever those opportunities are, that's really why we're so looking forward to Chief Bates' leadership here, and I think this is one of those questions. So I don't want to get too far into managing month to month right now, knowing that now Chief Bates is here and he's looking at this kind of more holistically. And I think this is something that's going to feed into not just our budget for next year, but also we parked our strategic plan. We parked that whole process early in the year this year, so that's something that we need to look at early in 2016. So I'd like to allow Chief Bates an opportunity to get to know the organization a little bit and kind of see where things are and provide us with some really solid proactive recommendations on how we move forward, this being one of those items.
Thank you.
Okay, so are there questions about this report, given kind of the knowledge that we're going to be asking Chief Bates to look at this, like I said, more holistically and how we might manage this moving forward?
I just wanted to mention that the overtime cost remains significant, I guess in part because of the lacks of flexibility that we have. And, you know, it's overtime, whether it's hiring, which we don't have the money to do, and term. I just wanted to mention that those 3 things need to be sort of looked at and addressed, because we're not giving adequacy of policing to our citizens that we want to. Because if we can't fill, for instance, patrol with the people that we need to have on there, then as a commission we should be looking very closely at that, because it's the citizens that need the protection.
Yeah, I think quite often when you talk about efficient and effective police services, I think sometimes pundits will focus in on efficiency as dollars.
Yes.
And that's a very narrow viewpoint to have, I think. So I think when we have these discussions about this, then we have to have a very open mind about it. And there are costs of doing business, and when the formula is not that complex. When you have the numbers of officers down, calls for service up, number of shifts required, backfill, and you have dollar per hour increases that are not reflected, and the number stays the same, as I understand, for 10 years. That's, I mean, you don't have to be Einstein to figure out that that's not a winning formula, and then you're answering for, you can be potentially answering for overtime overages that it's kind of unrealistic to answer to unless you have a budget that is
This year
reflects reality.
Yeah, we've had 8 retirements, and we haven't been able to replace them. My understanding is.
Well, there's an envelope we have to work with.
Yeah.
Right. So that's.
We haven't hired in 4 years.
Right.
Pardon me?
We haven't hired in 4 years.
I know.
Okay, any other questions about this report specifically? Yeah, Mel?
Is there, through you, Madam Chair, perhaps the appropriate staff person, to Chief Bates, is there a plan to bring us back on budget by the end of the year?
Yeah, the overall budget, meeting our overall budget. My understanding is that we are on track to meet our budget, Marvin?
Absolutely, yes. We,
Yeah.
Your Worship, our plan is to bring our balanced budget at the end of the year. There's a couple unknowns that we're dealing with, but I think we should be in good shape.
Excellent. Okay, so if there's no other questions about this report, I'm going to ask for a motion to receive and file.
So moved.
Okay, John? Jennifer, anyone opposed? Okay, none noted, so we'll receive and file that report. And the last item on our agenda, item 9.6, so this is skateboard helmets, and I think Anne Marie, you had something you wanted to bring forward?
Yes, I did. On August 27th, 2013, the City of St. John passed a bylaw making it mandatory for all skateboarders to wear helmets. A fine of $150 if caught. June the 4th, 2014, there was to be a crackdown by police to enforce this year-old bylaw. It's now October 6, 2015, and I just wanted to know the results of a follow-up and the plan moving forward. I had discussed it with Deputy Chief Glenn McCluskey, and he had mentioned at the time that he was going to, he's not here tonight, but he was going to bring it up with the community officers to see what could be done. The reason why I'm bringing it forward, it is a bylaw, and that we should be adhering to because it was passed by council. In addition to that, I've been taking buses lately, and these skateboarders, bless their hearts, it's a great park, but they're going down the street in between cars and no helmets, and we live in a city where there's many hills and they love it. So I think that we need to do something before somebody really gets hurt. I haven't heard anybody, but I know I have a friend whose son in Prince Edward Island was killed in Halifax because he didn't wear a helmet. So I think it's important that we sort of adhere to the bylaw and maybe.
Okay. So you had brought this forward to Deputy Chief
Yes, I did.
McCluskey, and
Yes.
so I'm not sure, Inspector Parks, if you're prepared for that. So maybe we can table this
Yes, that's fine.
discussion until our next meeting, and then we can get an update on that at our next meeting and kind of talk about what's being done and what can be done to make sure that folks are safe. Okay, so can I get a motion to table this agenda item until our November meeting? Okay,
So moved.
Jennifer, okay,
Second.
and John second. Anyone opposed? Okay, so that's it for our public session. So can I get a motion to adjourn for this evening? Okay, Anne Marie, second. John, anyone opposed? Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.